indices you gave, it is the big one that had those indices. And yet, because of
the big ones did not, because if you have a situation where you have
you know that
that is what was said.
That's what we were made to believe. You see, if you go back, you will remember that I put out a petition published in newspapers. Even the Sahara reporters carried it, someone or whatever called me directly from New York and said what I gave him before he published his own.
Give a typical example. Give a typical example.
I just did. Now I said, for instance, I said Intercontinental and Access Bank, Field Bank, and FCMB.
Okay, Intercontinental Bank.
Even the assets of the Intercontinental Bank alone,
the asset of the Intercontinental Bank alone, coupled with the loan. What
about its liabilities and the money that was said to have been given out to people that had no intention of paying?
And then also, if you look at the Access Bank liability, even this matter was raised on the floor of the House of Rep. And at the end of the day, typical of our National Assembly, the matter just fizzled out gradually like that. If you look at the books of both banks, and at the end of the day, what played out was like one MD fell out of favor with the new CBN governor, and so he was to be pulled out at all costs. All of them had issues. All the bank had issues. One had a situation where a bank was owing. You had your Access Bank was owing Intercontinental Bank about 16 or so billion, and then asset of Intercontinental Bank alone would put together should be about 25 billion, and then that same bank, you sold it to Access Bank at 50 billion. What you are invariably doing is giving Intercontinental Bank away to a smaller bank who had the same issues. Although you decide to mirror this bigger one to the society because, like he said, you already had a destination in mind. And so what do? You're just driving to your destination. So that actually started the crisis, the banking crisis that we all heard of. The Spring Bank also had issues, had crisis, even during Soludo's time. What did Soludo do? Soludo, even while appointing board members for Spring Bank, CBN didn't raise alarm because they needed, that was the backbone of the economy. That was the only industry in Nigeria that we knew at that time that was employing massively. And so they needed, as a CBN governor, you needed to manage these issues, this crisis, so that you don't raise unnecessary alarm and scare investors away. And at the end of the day, what did our CBN governor do? He came, a lot of people clapped for him initially, and later on, people now started saying all of the things that were happening. And what did he do? He went as far as the rooftop and raised the alarm. Oh, the banks are not solvent. The banks are dying. We need to do something. And so, Liborous, let me I will answer your question.
Were they solvent?
And then, how do you know if a bank is solvent? A bank has 30 staffs in a branch, and all of them are collecting salaries. Checks are clearing, and then you wake up one day and say, "Look, you cannot. This branch, I know you cannot pay 30 staffs. I look at your books and say, okay, how are you doing it? No, this bank is not solvent." It is not, for me, if you are a regulator, the moment you shout the bank is not solvent, and then there is no opportunity for these same banks to also respond that they are solvent, what you hear is the voice of one man.
But every bank has a PR corporate communications department that could make its case. He didn't stop them from speaking out for themselves, did he?
The same banks that when your regulator comes and say, look, from today the banks are not solvent, the MD, the board members, you are sacked. Arrest all of them. And then you expect somebody from that same bank to make a case for the bank when your MD and your board members are in the cooler.
Attention.
And so what the CBN did was to first and foremost intimidate these bank MDs. All the corporate governance rules and the rest. And the same thing was the same flamboyance that our CBN governor accused these banks of, was the same flamboyance that our CBN governor decided also to be involving. CBN, we got to
let me ask you this.
For us to know whether the CBN was a charitable organization or a central bank that was actually mandated to control our monetary policies and also regulate inflation.
Okay, well, we don't have a lot of time because we've got so many segments that's happening this morning, and there is another segment that will still take a look at the issue of the CBN. But let me ask you this. Do you think that the suspended CBN governor Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, did anything good at all in his 5 years?
No matter how...
No, please don't apologize for that. And we continue the conversation now. Yes, okay. So what are the good sides? Because there is nobody that you can say has no good side. There must be something good that we should look at. We're looking at the 5 years of his tenure. We have to begin to round up now. But as we do that, can we look at some of the things he did that we will want others to do in the future?
Yes, in as much as I believe the CBN governor was more in the media in terms of his job than the actual job. Also, he tried to peg the exchange rate. I would give that to him. He tried to, and then also there were some
actually went haywire, by the way.
There were some also regulatory policies framework that were put in place to ensure that returns from most of these banks were sent as at when due, and to ensure effective monitoring. So,
is there anything else that you think he did that we should applaud?
You see, I have more to say about what he did wrong than what he did right, because I started by saying he's a brilliant man. I give him that any day. But he's an activist. The office of the central bank governor is not for activism. It is for somebody who is sober, who will not be shaking the market, the national economy, by his utterances and by even his body language. In fact, not even to be seen, not about being heard. Somebody who will speak sparingly. Somebody who doesn't like the sound of his own voice. But what we had in Sanusi was somebody who preferred to be heard, even where he shouldn't be heard at all on any issue. So that is a very big minus for him. In fact, like I said in one of my places, I said, look, Sanusi is a poster boy of what a CBN governor should not be.
So, in essence, for you, he has achieved nothing.
I watched the people the things I said. The things he said, I accept those ones.
So, I don't have anything. So, things like what he said regarding the fact that they remitted so much money to the Federation account, it doesn't matter to you?
No. You see, unless you want me to repeat what he said, because there's no time. I thought we would do much more than we are doing. Look, when a central bank governor says they will not be remitting money, and he could only say that, remember.
No, I'm talking about CBN itself remitting so much money to the, in terms of what it has made as profit, and which has not been the case with the other.
When we talk about this, is that we have to. What one naira is today is not what it was yesterday. So when he says that, I'm not in a position right now. It is some people have to respond first officially before we can take it up from there. Because I don't know whether first of all he just said it. So I watched him. I listened to him say it was 8 billion to one figure to now 150 to one. In fact, it will not be 180. He said those. I listened to that, but I can't make any comment on them because I don't know whether they are real figures or, as usual, his concocted figures.
As a profit-making venture, remitting those money as a profit-making venture, or as a statutory body that is empowered to collect these monies on behalf of the federal government. These are issues we should look at also. Because if I collect revenues, remember CBN is the banker's bank, and statutorily there are some revenues that accrue to CBN or that accrue to the federal government that are warehoused in the CBN. And so if CBN collects this revenue and then in turn remits to the national budget, is it that CBN is involved in some form of business, or like running a hotel or oil well that you have run so well? You have run so well that you are now making profit for the federal government. That's not the issue. So we should not just look at this.
As a final question, then we need to wrap up now. As a final question, do you think that the CBN under Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, achieved what its mandate was?
If you ask me no, not at all.
Its mandate. What are the mandates that you feel did not achieve? Inflation? Didn't manage the inflation and keep it steady?
Not at all. That's why.
Are you saying that inflation ran away while the CBN government was there?
I would give you an example. If I listen to Chiboyo a lot on your program, and he's raised this issue consistently. There was a day I even asked him, I said, your issue here with this policy is, one, you cannot, continually encourage banks to give loan, and at the same time, you buy the naira from these same banks at 18%. When I can give you, when I know CBN would buy naira from me and give me 18%, why would I want to give you loan at 22%, knowing fully well that you will not pay?
I'm sorry.
So with that, there is no way you will be able to control inflation with that. And so that had been consistently the policy of the CBN. And for some laymen also who understands the arithmetic of business, you should also know that you cannot do that and expect your economy to grow. And if CBN had left the mandate, but every chase shadows.
Liborous, every expert will tell you that mopping up excess liquidity in the economy, mopping up excess
and how did this excess liquidity gets into circulation? Through the same process, you pay you share dollars for excess revenue account, and then at the same time you now say no, bring back this dollar, let me give you naira. You release the naira, and then also there's excess liquidity in the system. So you need to mop it up. Who released the excess liquidity?
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. I wish we have enough time to go into it, because my understanding is different from what you're saying, and I've spoken with loads of experts on this issue. The issue of excess liquidity, monetary policy is different from fiscal policy, and the fiscal policy does not rest with the CBN.
Actually, would have been this. You brought to us. Asking them about accessibility and all that. It's people out there that are good answers that
we will discuss that.
Questions that have to do with the legality of the CBN governor or the federal government to suspend.
Yes.
You're asking questions that are.
Sorry, we have to wrap up now. In terms of the suspension, do you think that the federal government was right, that the president was right in suspending, as he got a legal right to do it? That will be the final question.
Yes. My answer is yes, and the authority is there. The CBN Act talks about how he will be appointed and how he will be dismissed. There's a lacuna there, and that is about how he will be suspended. If you now go to Section 11 of the Interpretation Act, it talks about both the appointment, the suspension, and the dismissal.
There is a clause there that
says public officers. He's a public officer. Section 11 talks about it.
Okay.
So how he can be appointed, so we are not dealing with that. How he can be dismissed, we are not dealing with that. How he can be suspended is there. So I appoint you, I can suspend you.
Okay.
That lacuna is filled by Section 11 of the Interpretation Act. So the president, well within his rights to have suspended him, and that's legally. Morally, he ought to have dismissed him a long time ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've been chatting with two legal practitioners, Mr. Liborous Oshomah, as well as Barrister Ken Odidika. Thank you very much for coming. Pity we didn't have enough time to do justice to the topic and do all the legal things that you wanted to tell us about. Sonia will return in just a moment with yet another interesting conversation. Please stay right there.